Cigarette smoking is one of the leading causes of pulmonary and cardiovascular diseases globally. About 17 million Filipinos who smoke put themselves at risk for these diseases. And a new vape bill that is yet to be signed into law aims to regulate the use and sale of vape and heated tobacco products. Could it possibly help a record 17 million Filipino smokers quit smoking by using alternative nicotine devices or heated tobacco products known as vaporizers or vapes? Today, we'll dive deep into the question of, is there really a less harmful alternative to cigarette smoking? I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and welcome to MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. It's important to note that the best alternative is to quit completely. But for those who are having trouble quitting, our guests are here today to give us insights on this topic. With us is Dr. Cory Avincenia, a pediatric pulmonologist from Asian Hospital and Medical Center and the head of the Task Force on Environmental Hazards of the Philippine Academy of Pediatric Pulmonologists. We're also joined by Dr. Joyce Ann Maglake, a psychiatrist from the Medical City and member of GAP, or the Group for Addiction Psychiatrists here in the Philippines. Most of us know how smoking is not good for your health, but many may not be aware of how destructive cigarette smoking can be. It can put you at risk of a number of serious health diseases. Now, we'll start the conversation with Dr. Cory. Is lung cancer pretty much the only disease that people should be worried about, Dr. Cory?
Actually, it can be as trivial as just the discoloration of your teeth, your gums, your lips. You can have dry skin, and it can be also as bad as having high blood, a stroke, emphysema, and like what other people know of and more afraid of is the cancer. It's just not lung cancer. It can be lung cancer of the esophagus, of the stomach. So it can be very mild to really as fatal.
Now let's talk about what is in cigarettes that make it so destructive to the body, because a cigarette has at least 7,000 different chemicals in it. Now, Dr. Cory, let's talk about which chemicals here are really harmful to the body.
7,000 chemicals per puff. It's not even if you just finish the whole stick. And all these chemicals are not good because it's actually from dried tobacco leaves. And tobacco has nicotine, so it's the one that is addicting. And then the other chemicals, like there's tar. You know, tar, that's what you use for the pavement. There's lead, that's what you use in paints. There's acetone, diba, for the nail polish. So all of that you inhale, and they're all not good. So they're all toxicants, they're all not good for the body.
Now, Dr. Joyce, we've heard of so many bad things, unhealthy things which cigarette smokes can do. Why do 17 million Filipinos still do it? And why is it so difficult for them to break the habit?
Nicotine is the addictive substance, but there are a lot of psychosocial factors that also promote the use of cigarettes. So for example, it's really an interplay of biology. So your nicotine goes to your brain's reward pathway and it hijacks that. But then when you experience stress, you see a lot of people smoking. It's normalized. When you eat, afterwards, you grab a smoke. Because of that normalization, that peer pressure of it being cool, it perpetuates that reward pathway hijacking.
When does someone know that they are addicted, say, to nicotine, to smoking?
The first sign is tolerance, no? So let's say I'm a social smoker and then later on your social smoking is like weekly and then every day. So you've already developed tolerance. You're using nicotine more than you usually use. And then also the number of sticks or cigarettes you use in a day or the consumption that you have in a day. Let's say if you're a student, hell week, at work, no, when you're stressed out already, and then you have this thought in your mind, I want a cigarette. That means that experience of smoking is already embedded in your memory centers in your
Mm-hmm.
brain. So every time you get stressed out, it will come out. No? So that's one. And you can also look at withdrawals. No? So for example, when you do have a chance, maybe let's say you're in a place with no smoking allowed, you develop the withdrawal symptoms specific for that substance. So those are the signs that someone is already getting dependent on it.
Now, Dr. Corey, let's touch a little bit on the so-called less harmful alternatives to cigarette smoking, and that would be the vape and heated tobacco products. With these chemicals, does anything stand out among these 5 chemicals that can be harmful to a person's lungs?
All these components are in the e-juice. So
Correct.
that's what they use for the ends, for the electronic nicotine or non-nicotine device systems. So for that, they may be less harmful than a traditional cigarette,
Mhm.
but they themselves have these components that may also be harmful to the body. So if you compare it to traditional cigarette, there's still not enough study to say that it's safer,
Mhm.
but they themselves have components that are not safe.
Let's touch on the way they are administered, because the common factor here is the nicotine. So these are alternative ways of delivering nicotine into the body. Cigarette smoking uses combustion, while these other 2 devices uses heat. Is there any difference in terms of our lungs? Do our lungs generally accept one form better than the other?
Not so much the lungs, but yes, because if you use the traditional cigarette and you use combustion, so you also get toxicants from there.
Mhm.
And that's where the heated tobacco products and the ends are coming from, that they are safer because they just heat it. So it's aerosols. But the thing is, even the aerosols are not safe.
Mm.
And the nicotine, as you were saying, in a traditional cigarette, it may contain about 1 to 3 milligrams per puff, as opposed to in an e-cigarette, it's about 0.15 to about 15. So imagine it's so varied. And the mistake there is they think they are stepping down, but in actuality, they are taking more nicotine in their body because
Mm.
based on blogs, they use about 2 cartridges in a day. So that's equivalent to imagine 40 traditional cigarettes. So it's not really comparing apple to apple. So it's still not safe.
When we return, we'll talk about the differences between all of these products. So stay with us. We're your partner in healthcare. This is MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk, where caring is our calling. Smoking, any form, is dangerous to your health because when you smoke, you inhale toxic and combustible chemicals that can lead to a number of serious diseases. But now, we have a popular alternative to smoking, which are these electronic cigarettes or vapes or heated tobacco products. Now, experts say that this is somewhat less harmful to your health, but is there any truth to that? Dr. Joyce, when it comes to someone being addicted to nicotine and they have all of these effects, if they want to stop quitting, are there any side effects, some unwanted effects that they can expect?
Once you start to quit, 20 minutes in, you would already notice some withdrawal symptoms. Your extremities might get cold, and then your blood pressure will also drop. Your heart rate can get a little bit irregular. 2 hours in, you'll already have the cravings. 8 hours in, you'll start coughing, which will get more pronounced the one day after you quit.
Now, Dr. Joyce, can these withdrawal symptoms of cigarette smoking when someone quits, could these symptoms be seen as well even if someone is vaping or using heated tobacco products?
The withdrawals are really associated with nicotine because it's the one that binds to your body. and it's the one that causes dependency. So yes, because of that binding of nicotine, and as what Dr. Corey mentioned, usually because it's not combustion with the use of vaping, let's say, sometimes we actually take in more nicotine.
Mhm.
So the withdrawals would still happen.
Now, today the Senate and the House of Representatives have consolidated House Bill 9007 and Senate Bill 2239, or the Vape Bill. And as of February 2022, it has yet to be signed by the President, but it has been ratified by Congress. And advocates of the measure say vaping will be a good alternative to smoking combustible tobacco products. Dr. Corey, one thing about this vape bill is they reduced the age from what was 21 years old down to the same age cigarettes can be purchased, which is 18 years old. What can you say about this? Does this mean it's targeted to a younger audience?
Sadly, yes. Because the thing is, the brain is not fully developed till you're 25. So that's why we want 21 years old and above to be able to have access to e-cigarette, to vaping, to heated tobacco products. So the 18 years old, as we were saying, that's still the age where you're still very vulnerable and your brain is not yet fully developed. So yes, that's the reason why doctors are not for the vape bill. So that's why we're against it. And even the flavors, because the flavors are meant to attract even children, because the flavors are like cotton candy and chocolate. And true, they may help smokers. So they make it available to smokers. But the problem is they're also available to non-smokers and to the youth. And based on studies, the youth try out of curiosity because of the nice flavor and peer pressure if they see their friends are also vaping.
There has been also some concern on the discipline of the younger crowd, specifically the early teens, when it comes to vaping and heated tobacco products. One thing you mentioned earlier is how one cartridge is equivalent to 2 packs of cigarettes. Is this more a concern of discipline? That's why it should be available only to adults.
It's difficult to say that it's like disciplining like the parent to the child. Because if you have policies that will help, then it will help the parents all the more disciplining their children, right? So it's really having good policies to help the country, to help the parents, to help the child.
Also on the vape bill, it also states that they will be regulating vape products without nicotine. What's your take on this? Is this something that is viable if you take out the addictive component of vape?
You know what? There was a study and they checked all these e-juices. And those labeled as non-nicotine surprisingly still had a little amount of nicotine. So we can't be certain. So even if they say that they will regulate it, it really depends on the product. So sometimes non-nicotine labeled can still have nicotine.
When we return, we'll give you tips on how to finally quit smoking and nicotine in general. You are watching Med Talk Health Talk. We'll be right back. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome back to Med Talk Health Talk, your partner in healthcare. Now, even with the legalization and regulation of vaping and heated tobacco products, it is healthier to avoid nicotine altogether. But for those who do consume nicotine and want to quit, it's never too late to start your journey. Dr. Joyce, we've been talking about all possible alternatives, less harmful alternatives to traditional cigarette smoking. Now, when it comes to these alternative products, what is your stand here when we are trying to stop smoking altogether? It seems we're just replacing one addiction for another.
yes, that's what we call cross addiction. No? So you can actually shift to another. Usually, when we do smoking cessation or when we detox off of nicotine, what we really do is we remove the nicotine. Although some would probably recommend dosing of patches. So these aren't the ones that are smoked, but it can be gradually decreased down. But the goal is for us to be able to take it away. So usually smoking cessation would include really cessating from all products with nicotine, whether they are the replacement ones or what have you.
Dr. Corey, if someone decides to quit after smoking for a number of years, is it possible for their lungs to really heal itself and reap the benefits of not having nicotine in the system and all the other chemicals?
It's like depending on the number of days, years, months that you quit, that you will reap the benefits. So in 15 years, if you quit for 15 years, you're back to like a non-smoker's lungs.
Now, what would you advise these people on how to take care of their lungs after quitting smoking or quitting nicotine altogether?
Having a healthy lifestyle. So eating the right food, getting enough rest, drinking lots of water, exercise, and prevention is still the key. So avoiding smoking or vaping, getting your injections. So all these come into play, and all of that will help the lungs.
Dr. Joyce, when it comes to motivation, what's your advice on what kind of motivation someone who wants to quit smoking, what kind of motivation should they be carrying?
Our brain, it's an orchestra. So that reward pathway affects all other parts of your brain, like your mood. So we actually do motivational enhancement therapy together with it. It's when we say motivational enhancement, it's not really as simple as like you have to stick to this. No, it's more of engaging with them. Again, identifying ano ba yung nag-push sa'yo mag-smoke? Ano yung nagiging dependency factor? So we're not really, when we do the therapy part, we're looking for that core problem area na makes that smoking reinforced. So it really is different per person. Majority of the time though, it's actually stress. So yung while you're resetting the brain, no, you're resetting the reward pathway, you're also doing cessation. So we can give varenicline, which is actually a medicine that has been available for quite some time that we use for smoking cessation, and other things to support the withdrawals. And usually the one that would also maintain them in that cessation or sobriety period again goes back to that brain of theirs, because that memory of the nicotine will always be there. So it's not just pushing motivation, but also equipping them with a lot of techniques in order for them to be able to withstand whatever triggers or stressors that perpetuated smoking in the first place.
And with that, I'd like to thank pulmonologist Dr. Corey Avincenia and psychiatrist Dr. Joyce Ann Maglake for being with us, sharing us your information and insights, especially when it comes to the health risks of smoking. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and thank you for watching MedTalk Health Talk. We'll see you again next time.